of the African Energy Chamber. For those of you that have not spent time with NJ or haven't seen him speak before, I can tell you that there's never a dull moment. So NJ, let's get right into it. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here with you, Ross.
Good. Well, that makes two of us. NJ, let's start off for a little bit of context for our viewers. Can you start by telling us a little bit about the Africa Energy Chamber and some of your work in the region?
The Africa Energy Chamber is Africa's largest free market, limited government, and individual liberty organization that really pushes for energy access in Africa and Africa's right to produce hydrocarbons, but also phase in renewables. And we really do a lot of work with governments to help them to push an enabling environment to ensure that investors come in. And a big part of our job is promoting Africa as an investment destination, but also helping companies that are already working in Africa to be in Africa and operate in Africa and hire Africans and help prosper our continent. So we are an organization that is all about prospering Africa's energy sector. But big thing for us is, Ross, as you know, 600 million Africans have no access to electricity. 900 have no access to clean cooking technologies, most of them women. So making energy poverty history has become the hallmark of our work and basically has really defined the work of the African Energy Chamber. And I'm proud to say it's a cause worthy to pursue. And this has become bigger than our own personal interest. And I'm very happy about the work we do at the Chamber.
It's amazing to see what you've been doing, and you and I have had the chance to talk about a few of these different themes. When you look at Africa, right, it's 18% of the global population, but it's the recipient of 3% of global energy investments. Do you see this finally changing? I can tell you on our end, we see a lot of excitement, but do you see a bigger appetite for investing specifically in oil and gas in Africa today?
Absolutely. There is a change in when you look at global investments coming into Africa. I think part of it also has been a change in the U.S. administration, where you now have an administration that embraces oil and gas, and the demonization of oil and natural gas has basically been reduced. It's not over. It's a lot of demonization of oil and natural gas that we don't appreciate. But also, African governments have done a lot. They've realized that they're not competing between Mozambique and Nigeria or Angola and Libya. You're competing with Guyana. So they have gone back to the drawing board. They've gone right back in the kitchen. They've looked at their fiscal terms, and they've looked at some of the things that have made them high risk, not investable, and they have looked at that. For example, when it comes to projects, when let's say approving projects, in the past, it's taken so long to approve a project and the time you need to build that project. That's wrong. They've changed that. They've improved fiscals to ensure that, government take is better and is competitive. Royalties have been re-examined, and even the licensing process has been streamlined in many countries. Are we there yet? No, we're not there yet. There's a lot of work to do, but they are trying to be competitive. And when you do that, then people are going to turn and look at your geological advantage and invest in oil and natural gas. But also, we've seen a changing global climate, especially with Europe, where natural gas is so much needed in Europe, and there's a big search for exploration for natural gas. That a lot of that has come with the crisis in Ukraine. So Africa is seeing some benefits, but we need to go on a super drive, and we need to do right more, and we need to back those companies that are doing it. Our governments don't have to pick winners and losers. We have to basically back those that are going to get the job done and move with speed.
I want to talk in a second. You mentioned regulatory, fiscal, you mentioned some of the different permitting processes and speeding things up, approvals, all of that extremely important. I want to come back to that in a second on some of the specific geographies. But before getting there, you also mentioned gas. The upstream financing pendulum has swung back and forth globally, right? We've had guests on to talk about, financing the UK and Europe and Latin America and elsewhere. Are you seeing that financing pendulum swinging back to Africa? It seems like there's a lot more capital available today than even a couple of years ago. And also, the second part of that, apologies, is it focused on gas or oil or either or?
There is, I mean, let's face it, right now for 4 years, we had the funding going into Mozambique LNG stopped with Total Energies. Last month, I think we saw $4.7 billion. $4.7 billion that was stopped, just got approved. They're going to move on that project fast. We've seen money going into gas projects in Congo with Congo LNG, with ENI. There's going to be other LNG projects that we saw first gas coming out of Senegal and Mauritania on the GTA, big. We're seeing Exxon moving in with gas discovery. So they are portioning funding along that, not just Exxon, not just the Rovuma Basin in Rovuma LNG in Mozambique, but also in Egypt and in Algeria. In Angola, you're going to see more stuff coming with Angola LNG. They're going to drive that, not to talk about Nigeria, where you're going to see a lot of small-scale gas projects that are being driven. We see that. And I think, Russ, the part of that is that we see gas very differently than what most major countries see. Gas is sort of like a Swiss knife. It has many uses. So you could go into using that gas for urea, ammonia, NPK, fertilizer plants. And because there we guarantee Africa's food security. You know, we shouldn't be begging for food from Ukraine, a country at war. But we also have to take into consideration the chokehold on financing and the pushback we're getting from NGOs, especially from Western countries, when it comes to natural gas. The exclusionary rule that you have in Europe, that makes natural gas as green energy for a prosperous, wealthy Europe, but natural gas is bad. It's seen as a fossil fuel in Africa. So you can fund gas in Europe, but you can't fund gas in Africa. That kind of discriminatory process is really hurting us when it comes to getting financing from Africa gas projects. And we've been really been lobbying a lot, been pushing a lot. I was in Paris last 2 weeks ago to ensure that these kind of exclusionary rules stop so we can unleash Africa's gas potential, but the chokehold of financing to get right into Africa. So we could do some amazing things with gas. Imagine the gas that's being flared all across Africa, from Libya to Algeria, Nigeria, Congo, Angola. We could capture that gas and take care of LPG, small-scale LNG to power, LPGs for clean cooking, CNG, we do that. We're solving our climate crisis, but at the same time, we're also dealing with clean cooking where 900 million Africans don't have access to. Then with that LNG, we do gas to power and provide electricity for everyday people. CNG, we look to the future of having a cleaner, better Africa. And so we have to be able to communicate that message very strong, and Lord knows we tried our best.
Well, the gas resource across Africa is second to none, as you know, across West Africa, East Africa, you know, the East Med offshore in North Africa. There's just gas everywhere. And to your point, it should be utilized. As you've been working with the African Energy Chamber, what are a few of the specific geographies, countries where you've seen meaningful improvement over the last couple of years that have really become attractive hotspots for that investment we were just talking about?
You know, Nigeria did the Petroleum Industry Act, didn't move fast on approving deals and approving divestment. But then when they got it right, they approved, they did a lot of regulatory reform, approved a lot of divestments. So you saw Chapal and Equinor, you've seen Seplat and Exxon, you've seen Renaissance Energy with Shell, you've seen Owando and ENI. That has given a lot of investor confidence that government is not going to set up and become roadblocks, because sometimes our biggest problems have been bureaucrats sitting on things and bureaucrats not moving. Nobody elected these bureaucrats, but they sit and don't move on things. But Angola, look at what happened. I think over the years we've worked in Angola. Today we announced the Angola's president as Africa's Energy Man of the Year. Because, and you know,
I saw that.
It wasn't because of what he did between January to May. it has been a cumulative effort of what he and his team have put together over the last 6 years. Don't forget, Angola was a country where you were seeing decline. They've set up a process to stem their decline and fields that were depleting, and they did all the reforms from visas, fiscals, the way they engage with investors, taxes, and then they try to get into limited government intervention in the industry and opened up the system. You know what happens when you do that? Investors get confidence. They feel you. They move in, and you've seen a lot of activity in Angola where investors are signing. Chevron signed 2 risk service agreement. Petrobras just announced yesterday that they're back in Angola. Shell signed an agreement with the government to go right back in Angola after 30 years. You've seen Exxon drilling deep water offshore wells. Eni looking at new projects. Total Energy is putting almost $15 billion in new development in the former cobalt field. So we're seeing a flurry of activity. So that basically says, if you reform, you change, you get it right, money will follow, because money is not sentimental. It goes where it's welcome. And I think Angola has shown a lot of that. And other countries like Gabon and Congo that are really going into different kind of reforms, I think they should look at Angola and be encouraged by what a pragmatic, common sense approach could get you. Not to talk about, look at Egypt. Egypt has started being more attractive, especially for the gas market. And Algeria continues to promote, but we need to move on a super drive, and we need to guard against the ills of some nationalistic approaches that keep us behind.
Angola, I would say, for us at Welligence is becoming, or has quickly become over the last 6 months to a year, one of the greatest countries of interest across the world. You mentioned a little bit of North Africa as well, the same story with Algeria, Libya, Egypt. Everybody looking at it, everybody interested. NJ, as you know, that's phase 1. You got to get them there. You got to get the activity rolling. You got to, get the developments going. So this is definitely phase 1 of a lot of excitement. At the end of your commentary just now, you mentioned, something around a resource nationalism. We talked about the good with some of the different countries improving fiscal and regulatory. Do you still see some resource nationalism in the region, and can that go hand in hand with attracting investment?
Hell yeah, we still have a lot of that. But we got to be honest with where we stand sometimes. Resource nationalism has not helped Africa. I know it's, when I talk about this issue, a lot of people say, well, it's us versus them. No, it's not us versus them. We got to be very tough at it. And I say it's personal to me, because I've been lucky to be one of those Africans that have lived in various different countries. So we need to cut out some of these impulses on foreigners coming to work, because you know what, the foreign companies, they bring technology that we don't have, they bring financing that we don't have, and they really take the risk, and you should not try to demonize those that take the risk. And also, we have to, I'll give an example. In Tanzania, for example, the Equinor and Shell, they're developing an LNG project out there that in 5 years ago or 6 years ago, it was about $30 billion. The delays and accusations about them coming to take our gas and all of that, it's delayed that project right now. It's $40 billion, $10 billion lost, price gone up. In Uganda and Ghana, they discovered Jubilee in Ghana and the Kingfisher in Uganda 3 months apart in 2007. Ghana moved fast, gave the companies what it took, shielded them, and incentivized them to produce. 3.5 years later, Ghana was producing oil. Uganda has been arguing with the companies until Total Energies took over. 17 years value loss in Uganda. But guess what? Because of those delays and those nationalistic approach, we're now faced with a different environment, with Western NGOs saying that we got to stop oil, and what is this other radicals? They have Extinction Rebellion and all these really fancy people in Europe that don't really understand well and great. Now Uganda is fighting Greta and all of these things. But imagine if we should have produced 15, 17 years ago, would have been different. So what I say is that To us, to my African brothers and sisters, and to African bureaucrats, we need to guard against this nationalistic approach. The world doesn't revolve around us. That's why we look at saying being welcoming, that spirit of driving things the African way. Of course, you got to push for local content, but these nationalistic approaches doesn't help. It keeps us behind, and we pay that, because at the end of the day, you know what? When the international companies invest and they pay taxes, they pay royalties, they create jobs, they open up our countries, they bring in new opportunities. Whose benefit is that? That is ours. That is ours. We become winners. We become champions, and it creates so much opportunity for those who need burdens and barriers lifted, those who've been left on the roadside. Why become nationalistic about that? We don't have the money to drill some of these deep water wells of $90 million. We don't have the money to be able to put out some of the tugboats and FPSOs that have to be built. So we need to guard against this and not be passive bystanders. We need to be able to shut it down. And we at the African Unity Chamber, we have pledged ourselves, we're going to shut it down. It might not be popular sometimes, but it's the right thing to do.